Hey, what's up guys? I'm here today to talk about Jung's Memories, Dreams, and Reflections. This is a great book for anyone who is interested in any sort of self-discovery, anyone who's gone through trauma, anyone who is interested in any sort of personal development from a more spiritual side of things, definitely. But also anyone who is just interested in learning more about Jung. So this book was originally recommended to me by one of my professors a few years back, one of my religious studies professors, Bishal. And I had such a long list of books at the time, and I still do, that I kind of just never really got to it. And then more recently I was out in Oakland visiting my uncles, and we went to this fantastic bookstore up in Berkeley. It was like 5 floors tall. It was crazy. Fantastic for any academic book you could pretty much ever want. And my uncle asked me what I was interested in reading, and I said various psychology things, and I had noted that I had read some of Jung, and he said that if I hadn't already, I absolutely needed to read this book. And my uncle is another person that I really look up to, and I value their opinion, so I thought that I had to jump into it, and I was not disappointed. Prior to reading this book, I had learned a fair amount of Jung from Jordan Peterson originally. Then I had read some of Jung's books, and I learned a bit more about him in some of my religious studies classes. So I have already been familiar with a lot of the ideas, but I think the concepts I'm going to talk about in today's video are applicable for anyone, even if without a huge background in Jung. So the first thing I learned in this book was a lot about the anima. I was already familiar with it, but this book really seemed to clarify some things. For those that aren't very familiar with Jung at all, his thought is largely about unifying the opposites of things. So in men, your consciousness is typically more masculine, whereas the unconscious component of yourself is typically, there's a largely feminine component to it. And the feminine part of every man is known to Jung as the animus. And the animus is largely the creator of a man's perceptions of the world. So from an early age, this is things such as viewing the motherly figure, and then its significant others, and eventually one's own spiritual side. But anyway, it shapes the way we perceive the world, because it is the personified force of bringing the unconsciousness up to consciousness, and forming a relationship with that force is incredibly valuable. These unconscious voices, we can call them, are always present in our thoughts, but sometimes we like to sort of push them away, or we don't really understand their presence in our thoughts. If you've ever had thoughts that are shameful, you feel guilty, or like fearful thoughts, you often very much push them away. The anima, so to say, is bringing these sort of thoughts to the surface, and when you form a relationship with these thoughts, you allow these thoughts presence in your mind, which is incredibly healing. But not only is it healing, it allows you to act according to who you are, rather than sort of be victims of these thoughts. Because when you push a thought away, or repress it or suppress it, whatever, it doesn't really go away. It strengthens its hold on you. And this is all strangely abstract in anything. It's very abstract. So I want to sort of give an example of how this has played out in my life. Is when I was in high school, my mom died, and as I'm sure anyone who's lost someone can imagine, or even if you can't, losing a loved one is an incredibly challenging experience. And in ways, I unconsciously didn't want to deal with this pain, And I ended up, because I wasn't accepting the thoughts, the painful thoughts of dealing with her death, I ended up actually identifying more with these thoughts of pain and thoughts of, oh, I'm not capable of dealing with these thoughts. I ended up identifying with many aspects of my mom. Like I became what I conceived of as her rather than my own person. She, for example, she was really big. I remember she said that you can never have too many shoes. So I went through a phase of my life where I was just buying lots of shoes. She was really into music, so I ended up getting really into guitar and then quitting it. And she was an alcoholic for, I don't know how much of her life, but she was an alcoholic, and I sort of unconsciously allowed myself to become dependent and addicted to weed. And one day I had the thought, like, I was following in her footsteps. That was a conscious thought, but I didn't want to deal with it. And so I ended up doing that exact thing. And it wasn't until I allowed all these painful thoughts of her absence and everything to come with it that I was able to sort of free myself from it and to integrate the knowledge I had learned from it into my own life. I was no longer a slave to it. I was able to integrate it just into my outlook of the world and who I am as a person. And so it's important to allow these unconscious components to come to our consciousness, and we do this we can use the anima, ask her what she has to present to us, or just invite unconscious components to the surface. I find this has transformed my meditation experience because it makes it easier to allow the thoughts to be there. Same with spontaneous writing. It allows all of these thoughts to sort of flow through me. And it's very healing to allow them to come up, and even if whatever emotions they bring with them, to allow them to be there. So the first lesson I learned was you want to wed the anima. The anima is very important in a man's psychology, and then animus, the more masculine side, in a woman's psychology. And that brings me to my second thing I learned, which is the importance of dreams. Dreams in Jung's mind were one of the ways that the unconscious expresses itself to us, which is very related to the last point I just made. Jung believed that the dreams were sort of expressing their conception of the world as clearly as they were capable, but the unconscious has a different way it has a different language than our conscious language. It's not a logical it doesn't use logic and language to sort of think. It's more freely associated. It uses symbols, tones. It operates in a different manner as our consciousness. And through working with our dreams, we are, again, wedding the anima, and we are working with these unconscious components with ourselves. We're understanding ourselves at a deeper level. Jung had a thought that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will control your life, and you can call it fate. So again, this working with dreams is sort of breaking our sort of destiny of what all these unconscious components are trying to, or how they're trying to control us. There's a lot to learn in them. I recently started recording my dreams again, and I've noticed that trying to logically figure out these dreams isn't the way to deal with the dreams, at least for me. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but I find when I'm doing that, I'm trying to still understand these things from a very consciousness perspective, which is not how these dreams are working. I found that I'm much able to understand the contents of my dreams once I've journaled them out in the process, I'm sort of feeling into it or sensing what the meaning might be of the dreams and allowing them to emerge. Oftentimes, to be completely honest with you, it doesn't become consciously clear, but the message becomes more a part of me. And this gets into my last point. The true conscious understanding of things, it takes them a while for them to emerge. So I had a very good quote from him. He said, "A man may go for many years with a particular inkling of something, but grasps it clearly at a particular moment." And it is in this way that I think dealing with the unconscious and dreams and sort of life just in general, this ought to be our approach to life, because we can come to a greater understanding of these dreams and sort of integrate them just by feeling into them and becoming aware that we have them. And as time goes on, then they can emerge into consciousness more clearly because you've sort of done some work with it already. You have done what is necessary in this certain moment, and something will come along in the future and it will shine light on this dream, and you'll now be able to understand it. At least that's how I'm thinking about the situation. The idea that understanding will emerge at a particular moment has helped allow me to give myself a lot more grace, not just for dealing with dreams, but for my life in general. Over this past year, I've sort of been overcome by an immense inspiration to sort of bring what's going on in my inner world into expression for others to see it, but also just for me to more fully live and understand. Live authentically, I guess, is a way to put it. And I've been sort of really struggling with how it is I want to live, because I'm currently in school for physical therapy, which is a very rational, science-based side of things. And I have that aspect of my personality, and then on the other side, I have the more self-discovery side, the more non-physical side of things, if you could say it that way. Like, I've been obsessed with reading psychology and philosophy, meditating, yoga, taking drone footage, more artsy things, obsessed with my Instagram page that I've been creating. And I've been sort of struggling with how I want to marry these two long term. And as a result, I've kind of been rushing. It's made me very antsy. I've been rushing to sort of wed these two and figure it out, like how I want to live my life 10, 20 years down the road. But this quote this book in general, and this quote was that moment for me of just understanding that things are gonna take time. Like, I will figure out how to wed these two as time goes on. Like, I don't need to have it all figured out right now. And intellectually, that was something I had understood for, at this point, probably 6 months. But it was with this particular line, for whatever reason, that, like, I just got it and I sort of embodied about it. And so, just to close, like, you don't have to worry about all the uncertainties of your life. Over time, a gradual sort of understanding is going to emerge, and you have to just be willing and receptive to it. You have to be willing to say, hey, I don't know what's going on right now, but things are going to emerge both from outside and from internally. What's going on outside is going to shed light on my internal being. I don't need to struggle and figure everything out right now. So that was the 3 things I learned on Memories, Dreams, and Reflections. To sum them up real quick, I came to a greater understanding of what the anima is and our relationship to it, and that we really we don't have to, but it is wise to sort of form a relationship with the anima if we want to be more completely ourselves and not under the influence of unconscious forces. From there, I learned that dreams are one of the main ways that the unconscious communicates with us, and it could be wise to spend some time learning to journal your dreams, but we don't need to understand dreams right now, or anything right now. We have time to figure things out as we go along. And that was my third thing, just allow things the space for them to emerge. And yeah, that's it. Peace out.